Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, I want to give you a commander swap tier list. The best commanders to swap to, and the best commanders to swap out of. Because, surprisingly enough, some of the commanders you might think to just get rid of right away, I mean, if you care about auxiliary skills, you might hang on to them. So I've broken out this tier list as follows. All the way up at the top is going to be the very best swaps, the things that you really just want to swap to. Spoiler alert, it's like Arthur and Ragnar, and we'll cover a few others. Secondary swaps will be things like, I don't know, potentially Zhuge Liang, or maybe even Liu Che. Liu Che might be a best swap, but these are commanders that you'd be very happy to swap to, but they're not the highest priority in my opinion. As an example, I would probably put siege commanders in that category, right? The range commanders. Like, hey, they are really good and you might consider doing it. I wouldn't put it as the top priority, me personally, okay? Secondary swaps are where some of those are going to go, all right? Then we're going to have the commanders that you just don't swap, okay? Don't swap means they're either still good in the open field, or they have super relevant auxiliary skills, or they have really high potential to be relevant again. Then we'll have the okay to swap out category, where you might swap out of these commanders, but ideally you'd swap out of other ones instead. And Alexander the Great is one of those commanders that's like, you could swap him out to William Wallace, but you might just want to leave him as he is. And there's a bunch of people who would argue, maybe you do keep him as he is. He might actually be a do not swap. We'll get to that conversation in just a minute here. And then best to swap out. That is the category of like gold key commanders where you can always get more of their, sculptures from gold keys. That is going to be the best to swap out category. Lastly, we'll have the category of cannot be swapped. We'll put Ethelfled in there because she cannot be swapped. All right. So let's just cruise through all the commanders. We'll talk about the pros, the cons, the reasons why and why not. And that way, every single commander that you would have considered will be covered in this video. And I just want to start with those couple best swaps I mentioned at the very beginning, because I think it is very obvious that Arthur goes in this category of best swaps. What are we talking about? Arthur is going to be insane. We don't know how he's performing yet, but like, bro, come on. He is going to be so busted, especially if you go the extra mile of going and getting the butterfly inscription for combo. Even without a partner for him doing combo yet, I think he is going to be busted and presumably will get a cavalry rally that has combo. Maybe that'll have what it takes. Maybe it won't. But either way, Arthur seems amazing, in part because he isn't out in the game as of the time of this recording, so you can get nearly max value for doing the swap, and that in and of itself is really worth it, okay? The next commander that I mentioned that's like seems so obvious for a best swap is, of course, Ragnar Prime, and I want to be really clear. This is Ragnar Prime, not to be confused with Gold Key Ragnar, okay? Gold Key Ragnar, I would actually argue, if I could find him in my giant list of commanders over here, would be a great candidate for swapping out of, okay? So Ragnar Prime is a great candidate for a best swap to Maxim. Why is that? Because he's absolutely insanely powerful. What are we talking about? Part of one of the best marches in the game, trades so well in so many situations. Obviously insane. I would say those two are your two very best swaps, okay? From here, we can go through some of the individual commanders and where they fall on this list. And there's actually like a lot of really interesting things I hadn't even considered that we're going to talk about. So let's get going, okay? I would say Nevsky at this moment in time is a do not swap. Great skill, still very powerful. What are we talking about? I'm going to put Alexander the Great in the do not swap category for now. Originally, there was a lot of speculation that like, Chisgule, wouldn't you just take Alexander the Great, swap for William Wallace, call it an upgrade and call it a day? Maybe, but that was before we had the addition of Arthur. And it's like, there's a lot of really powerful things you could do here that are not William Wallace. And we'll get to all of that. All right. Now, ooh, this is an interesting one. Amani. I think that would be very okay to swap out of. Artemisia, I think would be okay to swap out of. But remember, in KVKs that have auxiliary skills, there's potentially some really cool stuff that you could do with, especially Artemisia. These commanders, like, yeah, you could do it. And if that's what you needed to do what you need to do, right? We're going to put Attila in the obvious do not swap category. I think the ranged commanders, I'm tempted to just put them in okay to swap. Why would I do that? I'm torn here. Let me explain. You might want to upgrade from like an older gen of ranged commander to a newer gen of ranged commander, which I think would be kind of interesting. It all depends on how many ranged marches you have. So I'm going to put it in okay to swap with the caveat that like it all depends on how many ranged marches you're running. I'm going to put Bertrand. I almost need multiple tiers of okay to swap out. Who's got Bertrand? Boudica, I would probably put in the do not swap, but like you could do that. I'm going to put an okay to swap. Rip Boudica Prime, bro. R.I.P. We're going to put Double C. Now, this is an interesting one. I'm going to put him in the okay to swap because, like, you kind of still want to have a max Double C for rallying Barb Forts, kind of. Right? Like, kind of. There's things you can do with Mina and Double C, whereas, like, what are you doing with Ragnar Prime? Or, sorry, Original Ragnar. You're not doing anything with Original Ragnar, right? You've got some really good skills on Chandragupta, one really good skill anyways. For auxiliary KVKs, we'll put him there. Charlemagne, bro, I don't know. Just, yeah, I'm going to put him in the best swap. You get rid of Charlemagne. Now, things get interesting when we talk about commanders like Martel. Martel's really weird because, yes, there are situations where you can use your Martel. I defended my city recently with the Charles Martel garrison, right? Like, on my restart account. In fairness, Charles Martel is seeing use today in situations like I ran Attila Charles Martel. We're going to put him in okay. And the reason he's going to be okay to swap is that you can get him from gold keys. If you already have a bunch of his sculptures saved up, good to go. If you don't, I probably wouldn't swap him, actually. Right? We'll put him at the back of the list. We're going to try to prioritize this left to right, where like the ones all the way on the left are a higher priority to swap than the ones kind of on the right. Anyways, oh gosh. CJ, see you later, bro. Constantine, I would not swap for Canyon. He's still kind of the GOAT. Cyrus is okay to swap. He's got some really great skills, I would say, for auxiliary skills and KVKs. Same is actually true of Edward of Woodstock. Like, can you swap him? Absolutely. Does he have good auxiliary skills? Yes. El Cid, can you swap him? Yes. Does he have good auxiliary skills, though? He sure does. Now, Flavius. I would say Flavius is okay to swap at this point if you happen to somehow have him max. Freddy, we're going to put in the best to swap out category. I mean, Khan, yeah, you can get rid of Khan. That's fine. Gilga, I'm going to put him in the okay, but I wouldn't make it a priority. Guan is an obvious do not swap. You can't swap Barca. Harold, I think, is probably fine. Some of these ones over here like do have relevant auxiliary skills. Henry, I would say at this time, do not swap, but he's kind of on his way out the door, in my opinion. You've got right over here, Hera. I wouldn't swap him yet. Honda, I think is okay to swap. Yeah, I think he's unfortunately okay to swap. All right. He's a leadership commander. He's got a lot of versatility, but then he is really locked step with skill damage and being the secondary. And as it turns out, they just continuously released not skill damage. So his fourth skill loses a lot of luster, in my opinion. Maybe normal damage mitigation. I don't know, whatever. I just don't think Honda's where it's at anymore. Ashita cannot be swapped. Oh, God. Yeah, sure. Yadviga, you can swap right out of that, bro. Nobody cares. Jan Ziska, I don't think he's quite dead yet. Joan, do not swap. Caesar. Bro, there's always cool stuff you can do with Caesar, but if you can remax him, I think you just would use a gold key commander, right? Leonidas. GG. Yeah, you get rid of Leo. Nobody cares about Leo anymore. Lubu. I don't know what to do with this guy. He doesn't even get museum buffs, right? Yeah, no, actually, I mean, you get rid of him. The problem is you can't, like, replace the sculptures, but I think you swap out Lubu. I think it's going to be okay. Old generations of siege commanders, I'm going to put them here. Like I said, you'll know what you're doing with your siege commanders if you've invested in those. Mehmed, I think, could be okay to swap because he's a gold key commander. Mina cannot be swapped. Moctezuma. Yeah, you can get rid of Moctezuma. I mean, use him for barbs, right? Mulan cannot be swapped. Nebu, I would say do not swap at this time. Still getting use out of Nebu. Pakal, I would say do not swap at this time. Dido, I would say do not swap. Ramses is probably okay. Richard is okay to swap. Saladin, I would say, is perfectly fine. You can get rid of that one. Sargon, I would say, is okay. Let me tell you something. Secret call out, okay? Low key, you heard it here first. I feel like there is some absolutely stupid, insane things that can be done with combo damage and Sargon and an artifact that switches his troop type. Just think about it. He makes it so your normal attacks do a bunch of damage, right? And combo triggers things from normal attacks. You heard it here first, and I'm marking this moment in history that the insane Arthur AoE Sargon thing I want to make happen, but I'm not going to promise it. But I think it could be nuts. Skippy, obviously, you're not swapping out of... No, do not swap your Skippy, okay? Now, some of these do not swappers, we're going to bump up as secondary priorities, maybe. No to the Gathering Commander that can't be swapped. Oh my god. Yo, Soliman, do you even remember he's in the game? Takeda, honestly, I think he's okay to swap out. I would not get rid of Tariq ibn Ziyad just yet. I think Theo is okay to swap. Ramses is gold key, so you could get rid of him. Unfortunately, Tommy, I'd love to see her like get more relevance, but it kind of didn't happen. Trajan, I would say do not swap. It's still kind of goated in Canyon. William probably ends up being okay to swap. I'll put him at the back of the list. It really depends on how many cavalry marches you have. Wu Zetian is on the list of things you could swap. XY, I'm going to say okay, but at the very back of the list. Esong is a no-go on the swap. I think YSS is okay, but for you, he might still be a sort of relevant city garrison. I think Zeno is probably also okay, but I wouldn't put it as one of my top priority things to swap out of. Now, Zhuge Liang, he goes up in the category of you might swap to max him. I think is perfect. Not really, but I think as a secondary swap, that's a fine choice. Justinian, I would say not to swap out of. Huo, jeez, I would put him all the way up at secondary swap candidates, honestly, for now. Gorgo. GG, do you want to max a Gorgo garrison? I think I'd put her as a secondary swap if you wanted a garrison. Liu Che. I'm going to put him as the very best of secondary swaps, and I will probably bump him up to the category of best swaps. Best to swap into. All right. Pyrrhus, gold key commander. Swap out of that. Asher Benapal. I know some people that are going to swap into him. I would put him as a secondary swap candidate. Now we get a lot of swap candidates, by the way. Herman Prime, candidate for a secondary as a swap. Oh, man. Siege commanders. I'm just going to put these in do not swap for now. The prior gen of siege commanders. Lapu Lapu. I mean, if you really wanted a city garrison, I'm just going to drop it in there as like, you could do that. You actually, like, if you wanted a city garrison, you could do that. Belly Prime, I'm going to say do not swap. Eleanor, do not swap. Gosh, Skippy Emilianus. If you wanted a rally for infantry, I think it's a fine choice. William Wallace is a candidate up top here. We're honestly just getting the candidates at play. I think that the CY Garrison is a candidate. I think Shajar is a candidate. The new gold key commander is just going to be do not swap. Nobody's going to have him. So, like, you're not going to swap with him anyways. You're just going to start collecting him. Philip. Philip is a great one to potentially do. I'm going to put him all the way up over here. And the new siege, I'm going to drop in as secondary swap candidates. All right. So now we refine the top of the list. Okay. And this is what really matters. Like, what are the actual best things to swap to in Rise of Kingdoms? And remember, I'm going to give you some tricks for how to go and do this, courtesy of my Restart Kingdom. I'll show you that in just a minute. We're almost there. But how do we refine this list? This list is crazy. So first of all, I'm going to put garrisons and rallies at the back of this list. If you're a rally lead or a garrison captain, like, you know who you are, you know why you'd swap to that. So we're just going to move those to the back, okay? And if that's what you want to do, you know what you're doing, okay? From there, we really double down on like, let's talk about open field, okay? Let's specifically be talking about open field. Should you swap to Huo in this day and age? Man, you could really make the argument that right now, we're talking about like, should you swap to something means it is the best march in the game. It has to be a part of that to be a good thing to swap to, right? So we're really talking about the best march of each troop type would be a candidate. So Arthur is an obvious candidate because everybody has not maxed him yet. Literally everybody is not here yet. So he is obviously a part of that. And I do think Huo as a primary and Arthur as a secondary is one way to run that. If you have the sort of combo inscriptions, specifically Butterfly, I think then you could run Arthur as the primary and that opens up who your secondary would be. But I feel like Cavalry are represented here, but I kind of want to I'm going to bump down the Lapu Lapu because that's a garrison. And I kind of want to bump down this Huo as well, like back behind the siege commanders, honestly. Shajar I want to put behind the Huo. I mean, Shajar is something you do, put him in front. Shajar is something you invest in if you think the future of healing archers is going to go in a great direction, and Shajar will be a big part of that. I feel like we compare Shajar, Ragnar, and Arthur, and like one of these things is not like the others, and that is tragic, and Shajar is on the tragic end of that, right? My feeling about these archers right now, and I struggle with this, is like, yeah, Zhuge Liang's good, but he's old, bro. He's so old. Yes, it's Circle AoE. Yes, Circle AoE is very powerful. Do we really want to be moving in on skill damage archers when we know it has to be true that healing archers are on the way, right? Like it has to be the case that the meta is going in the direction of healing archers, right? Right? So I just would bump these guys way back, and I'll just put all these archers together and say, you know your account, you know your considerations. They definitely are not at the same tier as Arthur and Ragnar Prime, obviously. Okay? And that leaves Hermann Prime. Does Hermann Prime have a place in this new world where archers are going healing? And skill damage is diminished? Not really. So like all these guys, all these archers, I'm like kind of not excited about. We move them to the end of the list. Honestly, I'm almost tempted to move the majority of these archers into the do not swap category and to simply say that, yeah, look, over time, Shajar is probably going to be the way this is run, right? Like if I were betting on the future of this game, I would say that healing open field archers is almost certainly the future. And I would say Zhuge Liang, Hermann Prime, and Asher Benapal, you are investing in the past. Oof, that is rough, man. We'll leave him there for now, which brings us to Wallace. Is Wallace a great swap? I would say probably not, honestly. Do I think he's good? Obviously, I love Wallace, man. Wallace absolutely slaps. But either I need to bump somebody up to like the best swaps category, or I got to bump him down, right? Now you will notice something here, like the siege commanders keep going closer and closer to the front. That's not a coincidence. Like we're reaching a point where, due to the design of open field combat, you either have a kingdom with the siege towers doing free damage or you don't, and better to be on the end where your kingdom has these things. So I think it is extremely reasonable for your strategy to be just swap into a siege march. Like I debated this, by the way. I was like, do I just take my restart account and do I just make a siege march? Straight up, I might do it. Like I actually, unironically, might just do it. And I might just pick the new commanders to do it with to say, hey, you know what? Let's just invest in the future meta. Maybe these two aren't it for now, but like, even if they aren't the best right now, they might be the best future building blocks. Hard to say. Which leaves Philip and Liu Che. The thing that gives me pause about Liu Che and whether or not he is a best swap, like a top 3 swap, is his future viability. And I think it is there. I think it's there. I do. Top 3 swaps. There they are. Okay. F's in the chat for Archer players, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. Okay. Dude, whatever commander they come out with next for Archers is going to be insane. And for that reason, I'm going to take Zhuge Liang and bump him down, Asher Benapal and bump him down, Herman Prime and bump him down, and I'm going to leave Shajar, right? Because they have to make the next Archer insane. They have to offset the fact that, like, Archers didn't get that yet, right? They have to. I would bank on that. That's my guess. So if that's true, right, then you don't really want to swap to one of those Archers, I think. Not that you can't. I don't think you want to. Wow, do I really have Philip as like a top tier secondary swap? That feels weird to me. That feels really weird to me. So let's talk through what we have here and let's see kind of where we landed. I think the number 1 swap in the game is King Arthur. He's going to be a part of whatever the meta of open field for cavalry will be into the future. And I think combo has the potential to be the most broken thing they've ever put in the game. So, and that's not an exaggeration. Okay. That the most broken mechanic that has ever gone into the game is, in my opinion, combo. And I actually think it might even potentially get nerfed. We'll see how the results go. Okay. So I think Arthur is a slam dunk. Ragnar Prime. Yeah. You know what? Infantry may not go in the direction of skill damage, but he's just that good. He's just that good. I assume he'll be that good for a while. Maybe we'll get some more skill damage infantry. Maybe we won't. It's hard to say. But if you got Skippy Prime or any one of a number of commanders to pair him with, he's going to be good. Even if you put him with Liu Che, he's going to slap. Okay. Is it perfectly optimized? Obviously not. Is it going to be fine? It's going to be fine. Which brings us to Liu Che. Why does he deserve the best swap? Number 3 in the list is that he does AoE damage. He does a bunch of instant proc damage. He's got he's the total package, man. He is the absolute total package. And I would suspect we'll get more normal attack damage in the future. And I suspect that what you do is pair Liu Che with that new commander, not William Wallace. That is my suspicion. If you had one sort of normal damage, smite infantry march, it probably will be Liu Che plus new open field commander. So that's why I'd put him there. Which brings us down to the secondary swaps. Philip. Why would you do Philip? If you're going to invest in leadership gear, I think he's a slam dunk. If you're going to invest in the Echelon stuff, which I did, and the power level, oh, baby, it's real. I will do more testing with that, and I'll show you what I made in game in just a minute here. Dude. Now, I don't think that Philip is a part of Canyon meta, weirdly enough. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't. It's kind of weird. Lost Kingdom these days, now you get 6 marches in Canyon. So maybe in that context he has a spot, but I have a suspicion that under the right conditions, he's going to be completely insane. So if you're going in the direction of eventually doing a leadership set, or you wanted a commander that's going to be flexible as a secondary for a long time, potentially, I think Philip will be really cool. Okay. Then we've got the Siege. And you might be like, wow, Chisgule actually putting Prio to Siege. Like literally the 2 Siege commanders I have at 5 and 6 as the best candidates to swap to. Yes. I think those, again, that might not be the best single pairing in the game, but like if I were betting on building blocks for the future, that would be pretty good. Which of these 2 is better? I actually don't know. You could make the argument that because one of these commanders comes from the Mightiest Governor, that would be a better candidate to swap. So with regard to the sort of Mightiest Governor, we'll put John to the left because he's harder to obtain. All right. Does that mean he's better? I actually couldn't say with authority one way or another. All right. And then from there, geez, do I really have Shajar and Huo? Let me tell you something. I almost need like a new tier, like a row below this, add a row below. And like, I almost need to call it like 3rd tier of swaps. Because it's just not the same, man. It just ain't the same. It just isn't. These are This is really not the same tier. That's where I'm at, right? And these are things where it's like, man, I don't know. Shajar, you're investing in the future. Huo, you would be banking. You're absolutely banking on the idea that Huo plus Arthur as the secondary will be the best cavalry march for a long time. That is the decision you're making if you were to pick Huo here. That's exactly it. And then if you're a rally or a garrison, these other ones are choices. And you might be like, well, why would Lapu Lapu be a choice if you're like a rally or a garrison? Sometimes your city gets rallied while you are, rallying a flag. That's because you want to typically be in a different alliance when you rally a flag, so your alliance members don't get hit by area of effect damage. So you could argue this is an opportunity to build a city garrison in a world in which now you have a formation specifically for it. Plus, you could swap to one of these commanders if you wanted. So, like, a really advanced player might look at this list and say, I'm going to go for Arthur, and I'm going to go for Lapu Lapu. Because they may say, well, I have all these other guys. I'll just do that, right? An advanced player might say, I'm going to do Arthur, and I'm going to do the Mightiest Governor Siege Commander. Because they're going to be hard to get, right? And I think this is where I land with my priorities. It's not perfect, maybe, but leave your comments down below with any thoughts you've got on the best things to swap to and the best things to swap out of. All right, so here's a few commander swap tips courtesy of my Restart Kingdom. That's 2293. Consider migrating here, by the way. We're on a 5 KVK winning spree, and we've won 8 of the last 10 KVKs we've played. Not bad. So Restart Kingdom, what did they say? Hello, everyone. To have 2 max swaps, you have many options, and that will depend on how many gems or dollars you want to spend, and also your commander skills that you already have. Swapping a 5-5-5-5 commander by, so you're getting to a max commander, here's the ways you could do it. You could, one strategy, upgrade your 2 commanders to 5-1-1-1, level 40 with 4 stars. This will cost you 50 gold heads, plus 36 each. I think that's tickets, 36 tickets each. So 100 gold heads, 72 tickets is 7,200 gems. So that's very interesting. If it's only 36 tickets to take a 5-1-1-1 and get a max commander, then here's a really, really, really cheap way. Small amount of gold heads, couple max commanders. Now, my perspective here is I would not use any gold heads for this, right? Bro, this is the literal best bundle they've ever put in the game, in the history of the game, I think, is the ability to do these swaps. And if you need, buy the bundles. The gold heads per dollar, I'd need to look into it more, but it's almost certainly one of the best deals they've ever put in the game, literally. I don't know. If you know a better deal, let me know in the comments. Very curious for it. It's just nuts, man. Maybe at the start of the game, you consider the growth fund, maybe. But probably not even. It's crazy, man. Use your 2 commanders at 1-1-1-1 and level 40 4 stars. This will cost you 72 tickets each. Wait. Hold up. 1-1-1-1, level 40 4 stars. You'll need to max the tickets with gems, plus buy 2 times $5 bundles. So it's a total of 144 tickets, which is 12,000 gems and $10. Or use less gems and buy more bundles. It's up to you. I don't actually understand this option. You can use a commander that's 1-1-1-1, but be level 40 and 4 stars, and that only costs 72. I thought it cost 120. So this is me being confused. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to live stream when this goes live, so I'll play around with all of this stuff, okay? We'll get the real. And then option 3, a mix of both options. Okay, what do we have here? We've got 1 commander at 1-1-1-1, level 40 and 4 stars. Are they saying that level 40 and 4 stars, reduces the cost? I didn't think that was the case, but okay. And 1 commander at 5-1-1-1 and level 44 stars. So you have to spend 50 gold heads, plus 108 tickets, which is 10,800 gems. So those are some strategies here. I think the takeaway I get from this mail, here's how I would look at this, is that the moment you start putting sculptures onto a commander, the cost to do the swap goes down. And if you're just going to spend gems and not dollars, there's ways to do this that can pretty dramatically save on your tickets, right? Like very dramatically. And I think the easy answer here is almost certainly just gold key commanders. Like I'm just going to keep saying it. Gold key commanders to swap out have several benefits. First of all, you will get them over time again for free. Second of all, you've already got some amount of sculptures on them, presumably, which means when you swap them, then you're going to have a decreased cost. And third, you might even have some sculptures just floating around not applied that you could reapply back to the commander right away. See what I mean? So even if you haven't maxed them yet, like as an example, I don't know, this is my restart account. And I was waiting. I'm telling you, hoarding and waiting almost always gets rewarded. And I just continuously get rewarded for this. And I love it. That's how it should be, man. Good behavior should be rewarded. Having things in the game and collecting things should be rewarded. But like, here's my Pyrrhus. He's got 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay? Now, I have a bunch of skills that I could apply to him. 258 sculptures sitting in the bag. I didn't. Why didn't I? Because I was waiting for a KVK that might have an auxiliary skill. And then let's say it's the third skill. Well, I could make sure to apply the skills in a way that gives me the best chance of getting them there, right? Or the best chance of getting them there. So I just waited. Now, theoretically, you could use these resets for the skills on a commander and mess around with that. But I just have been waiting because there was no reason to apply it, so I didn't. And yeah, I think with a commander like this, you could theoretically, if I wanted, take him to 5/1/1/1, level 44, 4 stars, do that swap, and then reapply sculptures if I wanted to do it that way. I'm not saying I necessarily do, but you may have commanders sort of sitting in your roster that operate just like that, baby. So I think that's pretty cool. So my restart account, I didn't max Ragnar. I probably should have, but you also could argue like I didn't even use him at all in the last KVK because what are we talking about? My restart was on the bench and I was playing my main. This was just a big farm in my last KVK. Thankfully, we're in 2 different kingdoms now with these accounts. I do need to go max him now because I'm going to use him. So like, I probably on this account pick Ragnar and I probably do Arthur. And like on this account, those are the picks. Even though I've got a deep roster of cavalry, which honestly makes me like very sad that I have all these calves that are like really good, like Nevsky and Joan and Belly. And like, I have more calves than I know what to do with on this account. But maybe I'll make a 6th March and maybe it'll need to be cav. TBD, I don't know. We'll see what I'm up to. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the game plan on this account. We go like that. On the main account, I mean, I think the game plan on the main account is going to be obviously Arthur, day 1, just done. Day 1 Arthur, I think you got to pay for a bundle and then you have some inefficiency of sculptures, but I'm just going to do it. It's going to be done. I don't have to mess around with things. That makes me feel safe about that. That's probably the play, right? So on this account, I think we go for Arthur, easy peasy. And I might honestly just do Philip. That way I don't have to keep spinning his wheel. And just like kind of call it a day there. He's 5/5/1/1. That's probably what I swap into. You sort of could make the argument, that like maybe I should just do one of those city defense commanders, like Lapu Lapu, or I could do CY. Like there's a bunch of commanders for that second swap where I'm still kind of scratching my head going, well, maybe I could just keep spinning the wheel for Philip, right? Assuming he's going to keep showing up. Is Arthur going to replace Philip in the wheel? Like, is he done? Is Philip just done in the wheel already? It's weird. As a player, I can't predict what this is going to be now. Right? Normally you get like at least 3 wheels of a commander before they get replaced, but Arthur's supposed to go to the wheel, isn't he? So I don't know. I think we might get one more Philip and then we start getting Arthur. I think. I don't know. But yeah, so like I could do CY. I feel like, this could be a thing in an artifact KVK. Maybe. I think we're going to get an infantry garrison though soon enough. And like when we do, either that new infantry garrison will go with CY with an artifact KVK, or that Gorgo plus the new infantry go together, and it's just that's it. I think that's probably likely to be the case. So if that's the case, How's my Lapu Lapu look? I have 219 sculptures. I mean, I'm still getting some pretty good sculpture savings on that. And that gives me a really good city defense, right? Like really good. If my city gets hit, I'm big chilling. So I could have my best garrison out. I could have Gorgo and Hera out, or I could have, I don't know, a rally running, right, with my best infantry stuff, Scipio and William Wallace, let's say. And for my garrison, if I brought Lapu Lapu in the equation, right, like I could do Lapu Lapu plus Hera, and I could be chilling. I don't know. I gotta figure this one out. All right, and I'll do all of that on stream. As soon as it goes live, I'll fire up stream and we'll figure out what we're doing with all this new stuff, which could be tonight. So subscribe. And if you're interested, by the way, in my absolutely insane set that I made for Echelon, where I was like, yeah, power level's there, folks. I think it is, but you know, testing will have to prove it. But here's what I made. And let me tell you, oh baby, let me tell you. So Civilized is exactly as insane as I thought it would be. Every time you buff something else, that target gets 25 rage. So when Trajan buffs, you know, himself and 4 other marches with his active skill, those 4 other marches have gained 25 rage instantly, by the way. And also, I tested this with the blue inscription, but I think it's the case with this one as well. But Influential Leader, when it triggers, it does a 15% attack boost to 3 targets excluding itself. Well, guess what? That's a percentage-based boost. It gets influenced by Echelon. So in the report, it's not 15%, it's 18%. And it gives rage. Seems good, man. Seems good. Seems real good. So, yeah, no, this. I mean, come on, man. What are we talking about? That's crazy. And I think the same level of crazy is going to be the case for Butterfly, which, look, if you're seeing this for the first time here, I talked to support, and support did confirm for me, okay? We got to test it, but this Butterfly effect is absolutely bust. This is going to break the game. I mean, subscribe to the channel if you like information about how to break the game. This is going to break the game. So Butterfly effect says combo attacks launched by their troop are 20% more likely to trigger effects triggered by launching a basic attack. What support said is that you add this percent to whatever the original percent was. So if something had a 10% chance to trigger, it now becomes a 30% chance to trigger. Okay? You don't boost it by 20%. So 10%, it doesn't go 10% to 12%. It goes 10% to 30%. Which, like, I was talking with Cortex and Chadsky about this earlier, but like you've got inscriptions that have these chances. You've got equipment that has these chances, okay, at the iconic tier. These chances are here. And I actually didn't realize, like, it's not just the accessories, but like also legs, chest, helmet, weapon. And when I was talking with Cortex and Chadsky, like they were like, no, it's also like all the pieces, not just this, right? Not just this stuff. So insane. And I pointed out, by the way, that combo attack, weirdly, we got to test this and see, but combo attack should trigger things that, like, this is so nuts. Not only is it when you launch a basic attack, but combo attack can trigger things that would be triggered by your getting hit by a basic attack. So if you got hit with dude, you don't even have to get hit with the basic, I think, for a combo to trigger one of those effects, and it's 20% boosted by Butterfly, which is like, oh my God, this game's about to break. And on top of all of that, dude, I don't know, is this video too long? I'm just like brain dumping all of the Arthur insanity right now. Bro, it's just going to be nuts. Subscribe. We'll talk more about it on stream. All right, subscribe. It's going to be a fun 24, 48 hours. I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, we'll check the cards over here. Until next time, watch these videos. I've picked them out just for you. And I think you'll enjoy them. All right. You have fun smashing your enemies. Actually, probably one of them I'll pick out for you, and the other one I'm just going to let YouTube decide which is the best one. That's the way to do that.